Good morning and welcome to Waking Wellness. I am very excited about this episode. It started off in a much different way about only an hour ago, if that, maybe an hour and a half ago, and it's been an experience this whole way. And I sort of wanted to start this episode prior, well, actually, as I sort of got halfway through it because I could feel what was happening. And so as I got towards the end, it was inevitable and it only made me want to do so even more. So here we are. Today's episode and it's a little heavy, very heavy, but also positive. Suicide, breakthroughs, and mystical experiences, as well as breakdowns. So suicide, breakdowns, breakthroughs, and mystical experiences. It's uh it's a bit funny because in the beginning it was only going to be about suicide, and that was because I feel it's a very taboo topic in our culture, and many of us do not understand how to go about talking about it. And it's not until something happens, typically, and especially in our culture, what as big as social media is. Like my mom told me when Regina King's son, it happened, that she said, I think that you should do an episode. This is very important, and it's something that me and her had, I feel, briefly discussed time to time, not in big detail, but just here and there, to make sure, like if you ever feel this way, you need to make sure you come to me first, type of thing, to show support. And so I wanted to then, but I had more of the doubt, that mindset of almost, who's gonna, listen to me, and that whole kind of, but obviously we've shifted out of that. So when this morning started, I started to feel almost bogged down, like it was this thing after this thing that, things when they just pop up can seem like, oh my God. So once you have 5 of those things all at once, it can be so much. And one of the beautiful things was when I had the breakthrough, and I want to systematically go through the episode, as I said, but as I had the breakthrough, I was able to, before I even closed my eyes, I was just looking out into the sky and just sitting back in my chair on my back porch. And as I was doing that, I had a clear vision as if my eyes were closed, and it was actually inside of me. And I could see almost as if it was just like there were levels, and in the levels, like it was, let's say, like the ground, and then it went up until like to a ceiling, basically. And in this, I could see, oh, I'm sorry. In this, I could see how I was beginning to release and how I was full. And it brought me back to the metaphor of I saw, or I heard the fish tank analogy, and how eventually or the ship analogy, where we just keep filling ourselves so much, and it becomes a bear into where we can't really bear it anymore. And the weight is, a fish tank can already be heavy, but fill it with water and it just seems 10 times heavier. And so that clear vision and picture to me was amazing, because it wasn't like it was something I was trying to focus on. It wasn't like I was asking for it at the moment, or it really felt like it came out of nowhere. It felt like I was just I was being given a clear sight of what my energy bodies, or what even if I just had to say my body itself, what I was holding on to is now being released. And I think part of it helped too. Yesterday, I did a healing session with Kai, and who I'm going to start doing some talks with. And I could feel the energy blocks disintegrating and starting to dissolve. And that's something that you see in your third eye. And since I haven't done a Reiki session in a while or as frequently as I used to, it was sort of astonishing. It's more astonishing now because to have that, to know that, and to be able to communicate that, and even though it's an internal vision, that's a feeling as well. It's so many things that is not completely tangible in our everyday physical realm. And so, or even to be captured by words, it can be difficult. And so to have that happen for me the day after and now having this conversation is just clarifying and solidifying it even more that is not only an ability, but something that is essential for us so that when we do begin doing the healing process and doing those attempts and doing the work to clear out ourselves and clear those energy blockages, we can have an understanding of what the inner vision looks like and that there even is an inner vision aspect to the healing process. That's very important. And so it just reminded me of that, and it made me feel so light, because what I already felt in my body, again, that's a feeling, but now I could connect it with, I could see that. I could see I was empty. I could see and I was being guided and spoken to and letting me know, like, yes, that's what reminded me what I've been doing the research and been doing the work for, is to realize that the great awakening or becoming awakened is really the great extinguishing, and where you blow everything out of you. And what that means is you become empty and you can understand that you are all. You are aware of, you are aware. And what that allows is for you to see inner spaces that were once not, quote unquote, available to you or accessible to you, whether, again, you have your eyes open or not. When I was out there, it was so beautiful because as I'm thinking about the breakthroughs, and honestly, this whole script was running through, but honestly, it was a download, and that's why I'm even here. It was running through my mind, and I was just thinking, oh my God, this is so beautiful. I can't wait to go and record this. And then I could just see the prana, like that also became very apparent to me. These things became apparent, not as if they were never there before, but as if the film had been removed off of my vision, like those commercials where they pull the film up and you're like, oh my God. And that's what the contacts are going to do for you. That's what clarity actually does for you. It rips off that filter that you have, because the brain does filter reality, and it paints it in a certain way on whatever filter we throw. So as soon as it ripped it off, it was funny because I was looking, I was like, am I cross-eyed right now? Is that why I'm seeing the prana? Because I know that can cause, some visual or hallucinatory visuals for you. Sometimes it'll start, giving you those. But as I kept staring, I'm like, no. And it reminded me of one of the very first times when I did become awake. I was staring in front of me, and it was almost like I was at Hogwarts. And I'm like, hold up, did somebody cut the lights on? Because it was electrified. I'm seeing almost sparks in front of me. And I had to ask myself after a while, is this what it means to be awake? And yes, in a sense, because everything is energy. So to some degree, you are going to, depending on how high your frequency is, it's just we don't think people can resonate at this type of frequency. But depending on what level your frequency is, you will be able to see frequencies on a certain level. Like whatever you vibrate is what you will experience. And so I don't think that's something I think that's something that is said, and it's said concretely, and people take words concretely. And so they feel like that does not apply as far as our audio, visual, sensory, and we don't also, what it really comes down to is we do not, intertwine the spiritual aspect of that, what that really, really means. Because if we did, then I'm not even going to go into that, but we would be perceiving things in a much different light. And so it was just beautiful to have those things again open themselves to me, because I opened myself up to life and them, and to have, which I'm going to go into more depth of in this mystical experience. Right after that, I started, the birds, they just started flying, very like little baby birds, and they caught my attention. I love animals, but I was watching them fly and flap their wings so hard, and as I was watching them do so, it was funny because then they would glide, and I was just thinking like, oh my God, they're learning how to fly. And it made me think that they were in their training ground. And so because I saw some that, looked like they had their mom or either their dad or maybe older sibling type with them, that once they turned, the other would turn a little bit after, like they were learning. And it was beautiful because these things, again, I became aware of once I entered a certain level of awareness, and it kept expanding on that. And that's the beauty of when you are in a state of awakeness. It is an expansion. Sometimes we think like loops are bad. Not, not, I was going to say not essentially, but not necessarily. Loops, the beginning is the end anyway. So when we are actually, it can be bad if we're not progressing, So if things just keep going, let's say in a blaming pattern, no, it's you, no, it's me, no, it's you, no, it's you, no, that like, okay, that kind of thing. But when it comes to a place where I kept realizing the whole situation I was in, starting off with the feelings and the thoughts of me thinking like, man, where and when did, well, I already know, but just still going through the sort of life review of, the suicidal kind of thoughts and or ideations, and what are the triggers, how long I've been dealing with it since young, and never really expressing that to anybody. And that was even a powerful thing that I thought of, like, wow, that's something that you have not expressed since a child, you've been thinking and dealing with. And so that in itself is a level of awareness that it opened me up. And that is another portion that I wanted to really hit on, is honesty being a key to self. And that is what I believed allowed me to have the breakthrough during the breakdown, is the honesty to address myself with things that I may have been thinking and then sort of pushing away. But now I'm really sitting here and addressing and saying, wow, I have thought like this, or this happened and it's been like this. Okay, how does it need to change? Or being so open and honest allow the answers to come to me through something simple. I'm watching the birds fly, and from me feeling like there was almost no kind of way out of what on any other kind of day or to any person may seem like a simple or trivial matter. Again, these little external things, whether it be a bill or whether it be somebody making you feel a way, like those are just piles on piles of really what is trauma that we have not addressed from childhood. So now we have pain points and pressure points being applied 10 times over. And that's what we're not understanding as a culture, I believe. Because if we did understand that, we wouldn't say, oh my God, Johnny just snapped because bro called him a bitch, or, so-and-so is out here just doing this and they living wild. It is all that's what karma, that's what a program, these are all things that are on a cycle that we need to learn how to cleanse, but we cannot cleanse these things without addressing them. And that's something that even came up, which I'm so grateful for. Again, me and Kai talked about past life regressions and like psychics and stuff. I really wish we recorded that episode because it would have been amazing for you guys. and a great intro for us to introduce each other to you guys, because we just actually met. But in that, or in today, and thinking about this and going through and having almost that life review again and saying, I've dealt with that since a child and felt it ingrained within me. And like, it's something that I sort of have to battle in terms of like, because I am so sensitive, I am so open, and I feel like, and it just occurred to me today being open, this is obviously like the way I felt. I was like, oh my God, I feel like this is something that happened within a past life. And this is a karmic cycle that I am trying to right. Like, I may have actually done that in a past life and ultra regretted it. And now I am here in this position feeling the weight and the weight of that pain and that loss for not me, but my loved ones and stuff. Because whenever I have ever thought about it here on this plane, that is the reason that I cannot, because I do feel it is selfish. And I really do love, I don't want to cause anyone that kind of pain. I don't think anybody that does that wants to cause anybody that pain. But I believe a lot of times it feels like the pain is unbearable. And when you feel like you do not have someone to turn to or a corner to run, then people tend to, that's when it gets very dark and drastic, because people are willing to do anything once they're backed into a corner. And I think that is something that, again, as a culture, I think we're learning how to address. But I feel like, again, we typically only address it when something bad happens or it happens to someone big. And it's not prevalent otherwise. And I think that's something that we as a community, no matter what community you belong to, we need to normalize the ability to talk about it so that people can learn how to actually heal from it, realize the symptoms of things that may trigger them, understand that other factors such as mental health is that's a very big factor in this. Learning how to, as someone with mental health and as people or family trying to support someone with mental health, I don't want to call it issues, but issues, learning how to have those conversations and communicate between one another, because just as difficult as it can be to have an issue, it can be 10 times harder to be a person trying to support someone with that issue and not knowing how to support. Or when you do, you feel like it's just not getting through, and anything that you do doesn't get through. So we have to learn how to bridge the gap between those trying to help and those who have that need for help, so that we can foster a more warm type of, and just a more informed type of community. This is not something that typically gets talked about, because again, like, I've even had, and it's so wild. Obviously, we're back in the suicide portion of this, so I can walk you back all the way through to the mystical experiences. But I've had friends, and it's wild because I've always, talking to Kai yesterday, she says, and it's funny, we're similar in the way, like, been more of the therapist type of friend, because when you are a healer, whether you know it or not, that is your role, and you assume it even if you do it in a over or under stimulated capacity. And that's important to understand, because many of us we can get mad or thrown off, which makes sense when we feel like we're being overused in that capacity, as well as underutilized in that capacity. When you feel underutilized, you don't feel valued, and you feel like your talents and your gifts don't matter. That can send you spiraling just as much as it can feel when you're like, oh my God, I'm so drained. Everybody only comes to me and I never have the ability to go to anybody. Those both can be just as debilitating, and that is important to realize, because from there we need to understand, and my dad always talks to me about this, and this is key within this. It's a balance, and that's something that I learned. I was given this understanding. It was integrated within me. I didn't have to read a book. I didn't have to pay somebody. I didn't have to do any of that. I just had to be open, keep my eyes open, my heart open, and watch those birds fly. And that was something that I learned, and it was integrated into me. So I need to take a little breather because I almost lost my track for a second. But we have to learn the balance. That's where I was at. I was watching them do the flapping, and just as much as flapping as they did, they started gliding. And as I watched that, it was ingrained into me. I said, oh my God, those little baby birds out there flapping like crazy. Just trying to make sure they're living, they are flying, and they're flying higher. I saw some of them just like, they were just testing it, like, and they were going higher and higher. And it reminded me of Scent Rock, like fly higher, and how beautiful how simplistic of an integration. I couldn't be more grateful for that. It just kept expanding me. So I just kept watching them. I was out there watching them for at least 45 minutes or an hour, because it amazed me. And the more amazed I got, the more my heart opened, the more I felt my energy open, the more prana I would see right in front of me. And then the more birds that would start swooping around. I'm like, this is amazing. And it's amazing even talking to you about it right now, because again, as open as you are and willing to be is as open as the universe is going to be. It's going to meet you where you are. That's what vibes, that's what vibration, that's what frequency is all about. And so it is just amazing to be back here, because it was, and it is the impetus. This started off as me being like blood red, just, oh my God, I don't know. And if you've ever been in that, I don't know, it can be the darkest and most spooky type of place. But this is real transmutation. This is what we are. This is what Waking Wellness is about. This is what all of our souls are about and here for, is this transformation, this transfiguration. This is what self-empowerment looks like, starting off in the bleak and saying, okay, you know what? And even when you get broken down, you have to open up so that something can get through to you. Because before then, it wasn't getting through to you. But when you are broken down, and it's something about being broken down that when you do, all the things that you were holding on to, just like, oh my God, that's what you think the ego makes you think is you. Once you break down, your hands just drop and everything around you drops. And you just like, I can't hold it no more. I can't. So something about that causes you to have the dissolution of ego, as if you are going to start going through ego death if you are willing to stare at yourself long enough to realize that those things are not you, and that you have taken on those things as you, and now it's time for real self-evaluation. Once you can do that, you start to shine the light on the self, and that brings a whole new set of abilities through awareness. It gives you a different skill set to examine the self through that awareness. And it's beautiful, because I'm sitting there like, man, I'm just broken down as fuck. I wanted to say it's important in that suicide space it's scary, because you want to tell the ones you love, but you don't want to scare them, so you're like, where do I go to? When you are broken all the way down, you go, where do I turn to? And you're just like, God, I really, really need you. It's wild, because no matter the situation, if you're blessed up and you are like, oh, I'm already good and all that, like whenever you pray and you send that out, if you're in tune, you can feel it. But it's something about being at a place of feeling pure despair and pure darkness, rock bottom, where the light shine. It's a little bit easier for the light, for you to be aware of the light. and you even call out for it a little bit more. And so in that desperation, you tend to almost call out with all of your heart, and that's what begins the openness. Like without having some kind of break, there would be no there would be no way for the light to get in. And so when we do hit that despair, it causes us, we were holding on to it so tight, almost with our fists ready to like bleed. And then we just have to let it all go because it becomes way too much. And in that process is the breakthrough. As soon as we're willing to be present enough and say, okay, this is who I am, not my thoughts, not my body, not my obligations, not my who they think I am, not the projections, none of that, but you actually become centered on the source and realize who you are. We can start to, then you are walking through and manifesting and creating your breakthrough on that same path. As you start to look behind, you're like, man, it was hella dark. It's still a little dark, man. I still got to go through this tunnel. But you can see from where and whence you have come. And that is something beautiful, because when you start to do that, that transformation, oh my God, you start to get people to walk with you, not because they only see it. This is not some kind of lead by example, science fair, you can see it on the display board type of thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about a quantum shift on the most minute of levels. You start to resonate different, because that's what the transfiguration is. That's what the transformation really is. Within, you are really learning what alchemy is about and starting to transform the self through frequency. You learn that, oh my God, just 10 minutes ago, I thought it was over. And it's not like you did all these distractionary tactics to get away from it, but you sat within it and you figured it out, but not with an intellectual. That's the key. It's not an intellectual understanding. This is a real at heart of the matter. You learn to tap into what it is you needed to access and to look at it. And of course, there's going to be so many other things, and there still are so many other things within those same aspects that you will need to address. But there is a clarity that comes. And as I was just looking out at the birds, all I could say is, I know everything is going to be okay. Dried up ass tears on my face from an hour and a half ago. I just know it's going to be okay. And not even just I know it's going to be okay. I know I'm on the right path. And not just I know I'm on the right path. I know that, and this aspect is important when you have these deep moments of despair, you have to find that outlet that is responsible, that is healthy, and that is invigorating for you and going to expand you. Because without distributing these feelings into a proper channel, it will only continue to pile up into our metaphorical fish tank. So you have to learn to channel. And that's what we do as healers. You learn to channel it properly. And so that's what I had to do as I was feeling so down. I was like, I don't want nobody else to feel like this. And I love life. And I know there's people feeling like this and who may at the moment. I just heard somebody the other day, I picked them up and I was driving and had somebody say, like, I hate my life. And that was tough for me, because I never heard that. Like, you may hear people say that like in music and stuff, but I never heard somebody actually say it and mean it and then start to explain why. And it was really pivotal for me, because I was like, man, I don't think no matter how down now, even if I was right before the moment about to feeling like I was going to off myself, I would say that I hate my life, because I don't think that's not the case for me, but obviously that may be the case for them. And it was just so pivotal for me, because that's who I'm meant to reach. That's the reason that I really do it, because life is precious. And it really made me think, like, this is it's so important to do what we can to help those that are really in need, whether or not we can see and tell, if I didn't do this video and I didn't do this audio and I didn't reach out how I was supposed to, I don't know the domino effect that it really has and the wave that ripples out from just tossing my stone in. And healing works in such magnificent ways that, again, on a quantum level, we have to be responsible and make sure we choose that proper channel. And so that is that's something that became very apparent for me. And I said, okay, well, I need to do an episode on this because I've been wanting to, but I was also scared. Not just thinking, what's the importance of who's going to listen to me, but also getting so personal and saying something like that, because, again, I've never said that out loud to someone or period, really. So to have to say that and then share that with you guys, as I told Kai yesterday, this is part of my self-love and my self-care journey too, is sharing with you guys. I am one that is very introverted, and although I want to help and do and share all of me, I can get, easily scared like anybody else, because once I open up. And if I don't get positive reception, then I tend to shut all the way down and then get defensive. And it's happened so many times to where that has, almost become a limiting belief that I used to hold on to. And so I'm learning again, and me and her talked about this yesterday too, to trust again and open up so that life can open up to us. Because again, as the famous psychologist said, Miss Anise, if I said her name right, that we see the world as we are, not as it is. And that's very true. We tend to put these binds on the world, and that's what binds us. We don't understand that. We'll say, oh, the world ain't effing with me, or ain't nobody rocking with me, don't nobody care. And through that vibration, again, we're talking on a quantum level, in your cells, you resonate that. So you have to attract that kind of thing through the universe, because it hears you and it starts to resonate with you as you through you. And so we need to, and I've been telling myself this heavily, and this is, I hope a lot of you hear me on this. We have to learn how to change our frequency. We have to learn how to become pioneers and engineers of our own everything, of our own chemistry, of our energy bodies, of the way that we think, our thought world. We have to become masters of this, because we are the ones attracting it, and this is what creates and constructs our reality. And so that's the only reason I was able to do this. That's the only reason I am here right now, is because through the dark, I was able to perform that transmutation and say, this is my intention. And I was inspired to do so through life itself. So it's my duty to do so, and my belief as a spiritualist and as a healer, to listen to what is being told to me, what I was just taught, and reiterate that to those that are willing to listen, to those that are seeking to do so, so that we may all progress in our proper place and in our rightful time. So, honestly, well, let me see if there's anything else, because I feel like I hit on all of it. The breakthrough portions. What else is there? I'm just very grateful for anybody that is and has tuned in. This has been a very intense, it just hit the 30-minute mark, so I think I am going to cut it soon. But breakthroughs become available when you are ready to walk through. And when I say walk through, that is really like, when we think movie-wise, that's walking through that dark forest. That's walking into, maybe it's that tomb or that crypt, And it's funny how these things, these images, really are metaphors. When we really get in tune with the capability of our mind, with the infinite potential of what our mind, what our energy, what our body, what we are capable of, and we can see the world and these planes on another level. I'm getting so many internal visions now, but when we can see in that kind of light, we are able to really move differently and multi-dimensionally. And this is something that mystical experiences offer you, but those are only up for grabs if you are willing to persist long enough for a breakthrough. That's the important part to remember, because and it's not as if, let's just say, like the mystical experience, I don't want to sit here and try to do this as a reward system, because that's how we typically think as people. Like, don't think, oh, I just want this mystical experience because you may have read about it or something like that. Like, you need to look at it as it's already an aspect of self, first and foremost. And so if you realize that, then you must realize, and again, bring awareness to, or put the spotlight on those aspects of yourself that you have not been willing to up until this point. I should really repeat that again. Actually, you know what I am. If you want to have a breakthrough and experience the connection and the rejuvenation that mystical experiences, and just being in tune with what you are, if you want to have that experience, you have to be willing to bring awareness to, aka train yourself to shine the spotlight, which is awareness, onto the aspects or the shadow aspects of yourself that you have not been willing to up until this point. Because those are the things that may set you off, that you run from, or that are blocking you, but you have no real quote unquote recollection of at the moment. So to you, you may just be in a room and it's just you. But unbeknownst to you, at least half of the room is just pitch black. But you don't even know that, because you just think, that's all you can see is what you can see. So you still think you got the full room, and all in that shadow, in that dark aspect, that's where a lot of different aspects of you, or personalities, or thought, so many different aspects of you live in that dark realm that you are willingly, and this is something we don't typically realize, we are willingly putting the dark over those aspects. That's our energy. That dark is our energy. That's an energy block. Whose energy? It didn't come from nowhere. It's our energy. We have allowed subconscious processes. We have allowed things to remain so deep-rooted underneath the surface that we are not able to address them or even see them as they are. This is what awareness is key to. It's key for. What are some ways that you can sort of get open to this? One is gratitude. As soon as I became grateful just seeing those, I just said, oh, those beautiful little baby birds. And my heart opened up. It was like they were just talking to me, and I needed it. Like what I experienced, or what I sort of assume and sometimes see probably happened to Bob Marley when he wrote Three Little Birds. He was really sitting there, and three little birds came up, and he heard the message. So he did his part and wrote the song. Like, I always feel like that. And whenever I have birds that really like get in tune with me like that, and I know those birds were like, that's what I feel. And so when you feel that, you need to know that earth, that the universe, that source, Gaia, Yahweh, Allah, whatever you like to attribute to as the source and the creator or creation. That's how you get in tune with it. You say, I'm thankful. And you just be grateful. And it's so funny how you expand. Like gratitude is different. Gratitude will up your altitude. It's no lie. It really is something. And to connect what I've been saying, Celestine Prophecy is an amazing book, and really is the spiritual, it's like the practical spiritual manuscript or guide. It talks about how animals are really, we are meant to connect with animals and their consciousness to expand our consciousness. And when you really get in tune, you may be in a desert, you may see a hawk, eagle, something like that, and you can tap into their consciousness and you can actually fly with them. You can soar, you can see out their eyes. That's what a mystical experience is, connection. And so it was beautiful. Kai asked me yesterday, like, what is a spiritual awakening? Because, like I said a couple things, and she was like, I just need to know them because a lot of people make it seem so grand, like, oh my God, you gonna know. And I just loved it, and I started laughing. Like, that's one of the best questions I've ever been asked, because I said, I used to believe that. I used to think it was one of those things you needed to maybe possibly have the near-death experience and see yourself floating out. Maybe it's a car crash and you see yourself and you get in tune with the light, or you talk to a loved one, and maybe you were sick and they tell you it's not your time, and then you get to come back. Maybe you need those things. Maybe you need to have that ritual, that ceremony with your people, and y'all need to bring in that spiritual energy, and maybe you need to have it. Maybe you need to have something so expansive that you just can't deny it anymore. But what I've learned after I had maybe at least 3 of those big ones, and after each of those, and after doing all the writing my diary for 5 years and spiritual experiences 5 years and doing all the documentation, doing all the work, all the meditation every day, 2 hours at least every day, yoga 2 hours every day, doing like Reiki, all these things, it let me know, no, you don't need that. We come home so often and whenever we are willing, because God and Source always has the door open. And that's the truth. It's really within the heart. And so when you learn to open up your sacred spaces, something happens. That's what it means to have your relationship with God. That's what it means to come to your moment, to come to God. You go inside your heart and you start to work that out. You start to see what it is you are meant to tap into, what it is you are made up of, what it is everything is made up of, and that creation is actually at the center of. That's what living in the heart is about. So it's beautiful, again, because so often, and it's a lot of trends talking about happiness now, how like you don't need to focus on being happy. That's not the focus. And that's real if you actually understand the full scope of what they're really saying. But so often we do get focused on just trying to maximize the pluses and minimize the negatives, right? Because that's how we've learned everything works. Like the more plus, the better. The less minus, the better. And so we have this is even a matrix and an illusion in our mind. We think if I'm always happy or more, then, like I won't be sad or something, or And what that leads to is if I'm sad, then there's a problem. And that's the problem, thinking that there's a such thing as problems. We have to really learn that we are humans and we are meant to traverse through all of these vibrations. This is what we came here for. This is why we chose to reincarnate, is to experience and learn, so that when we do choose to finally break the karmic cycle for good, then we know how to traverse the universe and do not get stuck in something so blocky as this physical dimension and realm, as a body. Like, come on now. Like, my soul can connect with you right now, or anyone in the world for that matter, whether or not hearing this audio. The body, how long would it take me to get to Sweden from Chicago, or even to New York from Chicago? But learning how to do so as a frequency, learning how to radio wave frequency, do it pretty quickly. Learning how to up your frequency and actually learn how to connect. The importance of connecting is so essential. And I've been learning that in the past few days. The pattern has been helping me as well and telling me some of these things I've already been knowing but learning, and driving some of the passengers that I have some of the few days, especially the old heads, has been beautiful, because they really have been putting me on and letting me know, like, hold on 1 second. Being or having these experiences, a lot of them have been talking to me about God and about how Source works. And it's been beautiful because through it, I've had the opportunity to remember, and remember how important remembering is. And I always think about it, especially when I think about my awakenings and having my first couple life reviews, but how important it is to do that on the day-to-day and connect with people and learn their experiences. And that's what the pattern even told me. It told me that you will learn, and you're actually learning, that what you can teach others is so beautiful and valuable, but where the value actually lies is in your ability to be able to learn from other people, to listen and learn from their experiences. And that was so essential for me to read, because here I am, or thinking that I was strictly focused on teaching and getting it out. But honestly, I've been integrating whole time and really accumulating to then go ahead and try to teach it. And it's actually why I've been sort of on pause some of the time, because I have been learning that it's, like they told me, more important to learn from someone else than always just trying to teach someone. And to realize that is one of my patterns it's been amazing, because it's been very reflective. It's been very reflective in everything that I'm doing. And so tying these all in has been wild, and has definitely been a journey. But this maybe I started feeling how I was feeling maybe at 8:00, and then wasn't up until 9:30 that, I sort of was almost halfway through that breakthrough, and then started doing this about an hour ago, 45 minutes ago. And to be able to see the whole, as opposed to one part, another part, another part, another part, seeing how they all do play into the whole is magnificent, and I'm just beyond grateful. So I hope that you guys do share this with someone that you feel needs to, and you check up and check in with your people, because a lot of us are going through things that we do not always know or know how to express. And this is also an ask for, if you're dealing with things, please try to learn how to open up. Look for techniques on how to say, I do need help, or figure out how to say, I am struggling with this at the moment and I don't know how to deal with it. But learning how to open up is so essential, and communication is so essential, because this is the building block of community. This is the building block of really where we all live and how we all live. This is how we experience, and that is consciousness. So for us to raise our consciousness, and we have to be aware. We have to be aware. And it's bringing awareness to how we can help, how we can be more helpful, how we can be more kind, how we can be more compassionate, because we already are, and we all have the capacity to do so. So by being more aware, we can help others do so, and helping people who may have gone through breakdowns, may be within a breakdown, and maybe you within a breakdown, and listening to this, learning how to be open with yourself and with others is going to be key in accepting what is, accepting you have the power to change, and accepting what needs to be done to do so creates the breeding ground for that change, for people to start talking, for you to start finding the network and the people you need around you to help, for you to find the people that you need to help and be servicing. It just creates exactly like I said prior to what we are all living in at the moment. So I think we need to sort of start acting as if we are all human, and we are all experiencing things that we know most of us do not speak on. So I hope you guys really enjoyed the episode. I hope you guys are going to share your breakdowns and your breakthroughs, and of course those mystical experiences. And if you are having any troubles with something such as suicide, you should call the suicide prevention hotline and find someone to speak to, as well as truly look into therapy. And again, it's about being open. And I, trust me, more than anybody, understand the problem with not wanting to be vulnerable, and with being afraid of being vulnerable. Whether you think it's weak, whether you think like you can't be helped, any of those things, those are not true, and you're not even giving yourself the ability to witness what can happen and the transformation that can happen when you do open yourself up to avenues that may be anticipating you. So if you are struggling, please make sure to reach out to those that can, again, the proper channels that can really help you, get through what it is you're experiencing, and be there for those. I had somebody that was with me the other day, and they was really there for someone who just was really, really down, and they were just giving them tips on like, you need to do this. Like, you need to, if you get this a little bit more organized, like, if you get things more organized, then your mental space will be more clear. Did you do, like, some of the things that you wanted to do? You wanted to clean. Okay, well, you didn't clean as much as you want to. Maybe you should work on that. And I told her, thank you for being so amazing. And because it was beautiful to see how intentional she was being with what she was saying. She was giving her ways to clear her space, to clear that fish tank full of water, to say, this is what you should do, so that, and this came to me as I was having my mystical experience, we need to clear the space and clear the water out of the tank so that we can fulfill ourselves with what is necessary and what we actually need to start growing. If we don't, it's just like that dark room that I mentioned. You're in a room not even knowing that half the room is being fulfilled by darkness, because that's an energy block. We can't even see it. It just looks like, let's say it may be a wall. And that's, once it gets to a certain point, you either feel way too closed in and everything feels dark, and or you feel like, oh, I've been lugging around an 1,000 pound tank, and I just until one day it's like, I think I just got to drop the tank, or the legs just give out, because we're not meant to carry all of that with us. We are meant to let things go and allow them to flow, so that that is what experiencing really is. And if we keep holding on to, oh, somebody made me mad, or you'll keep resonating that tension, and we actually have not left that space. We have not left that argument, that disagreement. And so we are now, that's what living in the past really is on an energetic level. We are holding on to things internally. And I said this to Kai yesterday, like, we hold things, whether it's in our body as pain, we hold things in our minds. That's why people are getting headaches. We hold things within our energy bodies, which make us very short-circuited. So that's why when you're in those kind of disagreements, you act out of character because you're not flowing properly. So this is the importance, again, of remaining open, remaining open to being vulnerable, so that we can allow what needs to get in to get in. I think if I didn't do that healing yesterday for Kai, and even prior to that, I had almost what was like a breakdown. So this episode was coming, y'all. Like, I had one of just needing to forgive again, and just that's all it was. I just needed to forgive and forgive and forgive, and it was just so overwhelming. But after, I felt so good. It felt like, oh man, it felt like, okay, I knew I've been holding this, and I don't even want to hold on to it no more. So let the stuff roll out. And I was happy for it. And that's how I felt today. That's how it feels right now. I've been asking to heal, and healing is not always daisies and rainbows and just angelic beings. Like, healing is going through the dark so that you can actually make sense of it. And that is in unison with the light. To get to the light, it is all one. So for the last time, please remember, being open and being vulnerable is the way that we really get through our breakdowns, so that we can get to the other side, have our breakthrough, and experience what is majestical, and really feel what it's like to have a mystical experience, feel what it's like to connect with everything, feel what it's like to connect with people, life, as yourself, and really connect with source. This is Waking Wellness. We are out. Health is wealth.